Hi guys, Mrs. Stanton here with Ziggy. We're in the kitchen today for some kitchen science. So here you have something called active dry yeast. And here's what it looks like in the bowl. Now in this bowl I have warm water and sugar. Now hopefully if this yeast is good, something pretty cool will happen. So let's see what happens. So hopefully now you can see that on the top of the water there's this whole layer of this sort of foamy looking stuff. We're going to talk about what that is and what happened with Abby Science.
It's question time, it's answer time, it's Ask Abby Science. So as a biologist, I'm super excited about this question because yeast is actually a living thing. So since as scientists we give everything a fancy name, and that includes all living things have their own fancy Latin name. And for baker's yeast, that's Saccharomyces cerevisiae. At least I think that's how you say it. But we'll just call it yeast. So that yeast my mom showed you is actually full of living things. Um, but yeast are very, very small. They're single-celled organisms. So if you take a paperclip, that's about 1 gram, it would take 20 billion yeast cells to make up 1 gram. So they're very, very small. But one of the things that those yeast cells do is they eat sugar and then put out some products from that. And one of the things they put out is CO2. So when my mom mixed the yeast with the sugar water, what happened was the yeast was eating that sugar and putting out a couple of things, including CO2. Now, if you remember from our raisin experiment, when we mixed vinegar and baking soda, one of the things that made was CO2. And we saw that as bubbles on the raisins that would rise to the top of the water, right? So that's exactly what's happening in that bowl. That CO2 is rising to the top and bringing some of the cells with it to make that foam. So the same thing is happening when we're baking the bread. The yeast eats the sugar in the dough and then puts out that gas, that CO2, and that makes bubbles. So the next time you're eating bread, you can look at those little bubbles in the bread and know that you're eating yeast farts. All right, let's get back to the baking. We had questions, and now we have answers. We asked Abby Science.
Okay, so now I've added to that yeast, I've added some oil and some flour and some salt, and now I'm going to mix that together and make a dough. All right, so I have all my dough. I mixed it all up, and then I made it into 12 little balls, and my directions tell me now I have to leave it sit there for 10 minutes. Okay, so these have been sitting there for 10 minutes now. You might notice they look a little different, just a little bit. Now I'm going to put them in the oven to bake. Here's the finished product, friends. We're actually going to use them for hamburger buns for our veggie burgers tonight for dinner.
Yum!